close your eyes for a moment and ask yourself one question. What are you still holding on to that is quietly destroying your peace? We often believe that strength means holding on to pain, holding on to people, holding on to expectations that were never meant for us. But the truth is very different. Real power begins the moment you learn to release. You carry memories that no longer serve your growth. You carry anger like a shield, thinking it protects you, while it slowly poisons your spirit. You carry fear of losing, so you never truly live. This is not strength. This is attachment. Letting go is not weakness. Letting go is mastery. Awareness is where everything begins. Yet most people avoid it because it asks them to see what they have been running from. You cannot let go of what you refuse to see. You cannot release what you continue to deny. So the first step is not action. It is not force. It is not even change. It is simply to become aware, sit quietly and observe your mind, not to judge it, not to control it, just to watch. You will begin to notice how often your thoughts return to the past, replaying moments that are already gone. You will notice how your mind creates stories about the future, filled with fear or expectation. And in this process, you will see something clearly. You are not at peace because you are not present. Awareness brings you back. It brings you back from the past that no longer exists. It brings you back from the future that has not yet arrived. And it places you in the only place where life is real, the present moment. But this requires courage. Because in awareness, there is no escape. You see your attachments clearly. You see the pain you have been holding. You see the habits that keep repeating. And for the first time, you stop pretending. Most people are not suffering because of what happened to them. They are suffering because they are unconscious of how they keep holding on to it. This is why awareness is power. The moment you see clearly, something shifts inside you. The grip to begins to loosen. Not because you forced it, but because you finally understand. You begin to notice the emotions that arise within you. Anger, fear, jealousy, sadness. Before awareness, these emotions control you. They become your reactions. They become your identity. But with awareness, you create space between you and them. You realize this anger is here, but it is not me. This fear is present, but it does not define me. And in that space, you gain freedom. Awareness teaches you to pause, to breathe before reacting, to observe before speaking, to feel without becoming lost. This is where transformation begins, not outside, but within. Because when you are aware, you stop feeding what weakens you. Look at your attachments with honesty. The need for approval, the fear of being alone, the desire to control outcomes. These are not random, they are patterns, and awareness reveals these patterns without judgment. It shows you where you are holding on too tightly. It shows you what you believe you cannot live without. But here is the truth. What you cannot see will always control you. And what you can see, you can begin to release. Do not rush this process. Awareness is not something you achieve in a moment. It is something you practice every day, in every action, in every thought. When you walk, be aware that you are walking. When you speak, be aware of your words. When emotions arise, be aware of their presence. This is discipline of the mind. And through this discipline, you begin to understand something deeper. You are not your thoughts. You are not your past. You are not the weight you have been carrying. You are the one who is aware of it all. And this awareness is untouched. It is calm. It is still. It is free. From this place, letting go becomes natural. You do not need to force yourself to release. You do not need to fight your attachments. Because once you truly see them, once you understand how they create your suffering, they begin to dissolve on their own. Like darkness disappears in the presence of light. So begin here, not with change, not with struggle, but with awareness. See clearly, feel deeply, stay present. Because the moment you become aware, you have already taken the first step toward freedom. Now that you begin to see, you must go deeper into what keeps you bound. Attachment is the root of your suffering, yet it hides behind things you believe are necessary for your happiness. You say, I need this person. I need this outcome. I need things to go my way. And in that need, you create a silent prison. Attachment is not love. Attachment is fear disguised as love. It is the fear of losing, the fear of being alone, the fear of not being enough. So you hold tighter, you control more, you cling to what you think defines you. But the tighter you hold, the more fragile you become. Look closely at your pain. It is not coming from the situation itself. It is coming from your resistance to letting it be as it is. You suffer because reality does not match your expectations. You suffer because you want permanence in a world that is constantly changing. This is the nature of attachment. It demands certainty where there is none. You become attached to people, expecting them to stay the same. But people change. You become attached to success, expecting it to last forever. But success rises and falls. You become attached to your identity, believing it is fixed. But even you are changing every moment. And when change comes, as it always does, attachment turns into pain. See how the mind works. It creates an image of how life should be. Then it clings to that image. And when life moves differently, you resist. This resistance is what creates suffering. Not life itself, but your attachment to how it must be. You must understand this clearly. Nothing you hold on to can remain forever. Not relationships, not achievements, not even your own thoughts and emotions. Everything comes and goes. This is not something to fear. This is something to accept. Because when you accept this truth, attachment begins to lose its power over you. You can still care. You can still love. You can still strive, but you do it without clinging. You do it without making your peace dependent on the outcome. This is the difference between attachment and presence. Okay, enrapturement says, I will be happy when this stays. Presence says, I am at peace, even if this changes. When you are attached, you live in constant tension. You are always worried about losing. You are always trying to control what cannot be controlled. And this drains your energy. It clouds your mind. It takes you away from the present moment. But when you release attachment, something shifts inside you. You begin to experience life as it is, not as you want it to be. You stop fighting reality. You stop forcing outcomes. And in that surrender, you find a deeper strength. This does not mean you become passive. It does not mean you stop caring. It means you act with clarity, not with fear. You give your best, but you do not tie your identity to the result. You allow things to come and go without losing yourself in the process. Think of holding water in your hand. If you grip it tightly, it slips away. If you hold it gently, it remains. This is how life works. The more you cling, the more you lose. The more you allow, the more you experience. Attachment makes you dependent. It tells you that your happiness is outside of you, but this is an illusion. True stability does not come from what you hold on to. It comes from your ability to remain centered, no matter what comes or goes. So observe your attachments, not to judge them, but to understand them. See where you are holding too tightly. See where your peace depends on something external. And ask yourself, what am I afraid of losing? Because behind every attachment, there is fear. And when you face that fear with awareness, it begins to dissolve. You realize that you are stronger than what you fear. You realize that you can exist without what you once believed you needed. This is where freedom begins. Okay? Not when everything stays the same, but when you no longer need it to. Release the grip, and suffering loosens its hold on you. As you begin to see your attachments and understand how they create suffering, another door opens in front of you. That door is acceptance. Without acceptance, awareness remains incomplete. Without acceptance, you will continue to fight what already is. And this inner conflict is what keeps you restless. Acceptance does not mean you agree with everything. It does not mean you stop improving your life. It means you stop denying reality. You stop arguing with what has already happened. Because no matter how much you resist, the past will not change. No matter how much you complain, the present will not bend to your demands. So the question is simple. Will you continue to resist, or will you learn to accept? When something painful happens, the mind immediately reacts. It says, this should not be happening. This is unfair. Why me? And in that moment, you create a second layer of suffering. The first layer is the event itself. The second layer is your resistance to it. Acceptance removes that second layer. It allows you to face life without adding unnecessary weight. It allows you to experience pain without turning it into long-term suffering. Because pain is natural. Pain is part of being human. But suffering is created when you refuse to accept what is already here. Look at your life. How much energy have you wasted trying to change things that cannot be changed? How many times have you replayed the same situation in your mind, wishing it had gone differently? This is not strength. This is resistance. Acceptance is strength. And it takes strength to say, this is my reality right now. It takes strength to face discomfort without running away. It takes strength to let go of the need for things to be perfect before you allow yourself to feel peace. When you accept, something shifts within you. The tension begins to dissolve. The mind becomes quieter. You are no longer in conflict with life. And in that state, clarity arises. From acceptance, you can finally see what needs to be done. Without acceptance, your actions are driven by emotion, by frustration, by fear. But with acceptance, your actions come from a place of calm understanding. You respond instead of reacting. You move forward instead of staying stuck. This is why acceptance is not passive. It is active awareness in its purest form. Imagine standing in the middle of a storm. If you fight the wind, you will be exhausted. If you deny the rain, you will suffer. But if you accept the storm, you can move through it with stability. You adjust, you adapt, you remain grounded. Life is no different. There will always be challenges. There will always be moments that test you. But your peace does not depend on the absence of these moments. It depends on your ability to accept them fully. Acceptance also frees you from the need to control everything. You begin to understand that not everything is within your power. And this realization is not limiting, it is liberating. Because you stop wasting energy on what you cannot control, and you focus on what you can. Yeah? You can control your response, you can control your mindset, you can control the way you show up in each moment. And that is enough. Acceptance brings you back to the present. It anchors you in reality. It allows you to experience life as it is, not as your mind wishes it to be. And in that experience, you find a quiet kind of peace. Not a loud happiness, not excitement, but a steady calm that remains even when life is uncertain. This is the peace that does not depend on conditions. So do not misunderstand acceptance. It is not giving up. It is letting go of resistance. It is choosing to stop fighting what you cannot change so you can change what truly matters. And when you reach this point, letting go becomes easier because you are no longer attached to how things should be. You are aligned with how things are. Accept fully, and peace begins to rise within you. And as you begin to accept life as it is, another illusion starts to reveal itself. The illusion of control. It is subtle, yet it shapes almost every decision you make. You believe that if you plan enough, think enough, worry enough, you can control the outcome of your life. You believe that control will protect you from pain, from failure, from uncertainty. But look closely. Has it ever truly worked? Control gives you a false sense of security. It tells you that if everything goes according to your expectations, you will finally be at peace. But life does not follow your script. No matter how much you try to control people, situations, or outcomes, something will always remain unpredictable. And this is where your suffering begins, because when reality moves in a different direction, your mind resists. It becomes frustrated. It becomes anxious. It tries harder to control what is already slipping away. And in this struggle, you lose your balance. You must understand this deeply. Control is not the same as discipline. Discipline is about guiding your actions with awareness. Control is about forcing life to obey your expectations. One brings clarity, the other creates tension. See how often you try to control things that are not yours to control? You try to control how others perceive you. You try to control how they behave, how they respond, how they feel. You try to control the future, creating plans upon plans, hoping nothing will go wrong. But life is not meant to be controlled in this way. It is meant to be experienced. The more you try to control everything, the more fragile you become, because your peace becomes dependent on everything going right. And when something goes wrong, even something small, it disturbs you deeply. This is the cost of control. But when you begin to let go of control, something unexpected happens. You do not become weak. You become flexible. You become resilient. You begin to flow with life instead of resisting it. Letting go of control does not mean you stop taking responsibility. It means you focus only on what is within your reach, your effort, your intention, your awareness, and you release the rest. You do your best, but you do not demand a specific outcome. This is where true strength lies. Imagine holding a rope in a constant tug of war with life. You pull harder, trying to win, trying to dominate, but the more you pull, the more tension you create. Now imagine letting go of that rope. The struggle ends immediately. The tension disappears. Not because you lost, but because you chose not to fight. This is the power of releasing control. You begin to trust the process of life, not blindly, but with understanding. You understand that uncertainty is not your enemy. It is part of growth. It is what pushes you beyond your limits. It is what teaches you to adapt, to learn, to evolve. Control tries to eliminate uncertainty, but in doing so, it limits your potential. When you release control, you open yourself to possibilities you could never plan. You allow life to unfold in ways you cannot predict. And instead of fear, you meet it with presence. You become steady, not because everything is certain, but because you are no longer dependent on certainty. This also changes the way you deal with others. You stop trying to control their actions, their opinions, their choices. You allow them to be as they are. And in this space, your relationships become lighter. There is less conflict, less expectation, less disappointment. Because you no longer demand that others fit into your idea of how they should be. You accept them, just as you are learning to accept life. Letting go of control also brings you back to the present moment, because control lives in the future. It lives in what might happen. It lives in what might happen, what could go wrong, what needs to be fixed. But life is happening now. And when you are fully present, control loses its grip on you. You act when action is needed. You rest when rest is needed. You respond with clarity instead of reacting with fear. This is inner balance. So observe where you are trying to control too much. Notice the tension it creates within you. Notice how it pulls you away from peace. And gently, step by step, begin to release that need. And trust your effort. Trust your awareness. Trust the flow of life. It can become up because the moment you stop trying to control everything, you finally begin to experience everything. Release control, and you will discover a deeper kind of strength. When you begin to loosen your grip on control, you create something that most people never experience. Space. Not physical space, but inner space. And this space changes everything. For so long, your mind has been crowded, filled with thoughts that repeat, emotions that linger, attachments that weigh you down. There is no room to breathe, no room to see clearly. You move from one reaction to another without ever pausing, without ever understanding. But the moment you release even a little, space begins to appear. And in that space, something powerful happens. Clarity arises. When your mind is full, you cannot see truth. You only see your fears, your expectations, your conditioned patterns. Everything is filtered through what you are holding on to. But when you let go, you remove those filters. You begin to see situations as they are, not as you imagine them to be. Okay? This is why release is not loss. It is creation. You are not losing something valuable. You are making room for something real. Think of your mind like a container. If it is filled with old, stagnant water, there is no space for fresh water to enter. You may try to pour in something new, but it will only mix with what is already there. It will never be clear. But when you empty the container, even partially, you allow something pure to flow in. This is the power of creating space. When you release old grudges, you create space for peace. When you release constant worry, you create space for calm. When you release the need for validation, you create space for self-respect. Everything you let go of opens a door for something deeper to enter, but this requires trust. Because when you first let go, it can feel uncomfortable. You are used to holding on. You are used to filling every moment with thought, with distraction, with noise. So when space appears, the mind becomes uneasy. It tries to fill it again, quickly, with the same patterns. Do not rush to fill the space. Stay with it. In that emptiness, there is intelligence. There is stillness. There is a quiet awareness that does not need constant stimulation. This is where your true strength begins to emerge. Not from doing more, but from being present with less. Space also allows you to respond differently. Before, everything was immediate. Someone says something and you react. Something happens and you become overwhelmed. There was no gap between the event and your reaction. But now there is space. And in that space, you have a choice. You can choose to respond with patience instead of anger. You can choose understanding instead of judgment. You can choose silence instead of unnecessary words. This is how your life begins to change, not through force, but through awareness supported by space. Without space, awareness cannot grow. Your creativity also depends on this space. Your clarity of direction depends on this space. Even your sense of self depends on this space. Because when your mind is constantly occupied, you are living on the surface. You are reacting, not reflecting. You are surviving, not understanding. Space takes you deeper. It allows you to reconnect with yourself beyond the noise, beyond the expectations of others, beyond the identities you have been carrying. In this space, you begin to feel a quiet sense of completeness. Not because everything is perfect, but because you are no longer divided within yourself. This is inner alignment. And from this alignment, your actions become more precise, more intentional. You no longer waste energy on things that do not matter. You no longer chase what does not align with your path, because you can see clearly what is essential and what is not. This clarity is a direct result of space. So do not underestimate the power of release. Every time you let go of something that no longer serves you, you are not becoming empty. You are becoming available for growth, available for peace, available for truth. Let the space expand. Do not fear it. Do not try to control it. Allow it to deepen within you. Because in that space, you will find a version of yourself that is not burdened, not distracted, not lost. A version of yourself that is fully present. Release and allow space to reveal who you truly are. As space begins to open within you, you start to see your life from a different perspective. What once felt necessary now feels heavy. What once defined you now feels limiting. And in this clarity, you are faced with a quiet truth. Growth is not about adding more. It is about letting go of what no longer belongs. Most people think growth means gaining something new. More success, more knowledge, more recognition, but true growth often asks for the opposite. It asks you to release habits that keep you stuck, to release beliefs that keep you small, to release versions of yourself that no longer align with who you are becoming. This is not comfortable, because you become attached not only to things and people, but to your own identity. You say, this is who I am. This is how I think. This is how I react. And you hold on to this identity as if it is permanent, but it is not. It is a collection of experiences, patterns, and conditioning. And if you do not question it, it becomes your limitation. And growth requires you to outgrow yourself. You cannot step into a new level of awareness while holding on to old patterns. Susats. You cannot move forward while carrying the weight of past versions of you. Something must be released for something greater to emerge. Look at your habits, the way you respond to challenges, the way you deal with discomfort. Do you avoid it or do you face it? Do you repeat the same reactions or do you pause and choose differently? Growth happens in these moments. Not in comfort, but an awareness followed by change. But change is not forced. It is allowed. When you become aware of a pattern that no longer serves you, you have a choice. You can continue feeding it, or you can begin to let it go. And letting go here does not mean suppressing it. It means understanding it so deeply that it loses its hold over you. This is inner evolution. It is subtle, but powerful. You begin to notice that what once triggered you no longer has the same effect. What once distracted you no longer pulls your attention. What once defined your limits no longer feels true. Okay. This is growth through release. It also requires discipline, not the discipline of control, but the discipline of awareness. The discipline to observe yourself honestly. The discipline to choose what is right over what is easy. The discipline to stay present, even when the mind wants to escape. Heng, without this discipline, you fall back into old patterns. Because the familiar always feels comfortable, even when it is limiting. The mind prefers what it knows, even if it causes suffering. So growth asks you to step into the unknown, to move beyond what feels safe, into what is necessary. And this is where many people stop. They become aware, they understand, but they do not release. They hold on to what is familiar because it feels secure. But this security is an illusion. It keeps you where you are. It prevents expansion. It limits your potential. To grow, you must be willing to feel uncomfortable. You must be willing to let go of certainty, to let go of the need to always be right, to let go of the need to always be in control. And in doing so, you create space for new understanding, new strength, new ways of being. And growth is a continuous process. It does not end at one level. Each stage requires a new level of letting go. Each step forward asks you to release something behind. And if you resist this process, you remain stuck, even if everything around you changes. But if you embrace it, something powerful happens. You begin to trust the process of your own evolution. You begin to understand that letting go is not loss, but transformation. You are not becoming less. You're becoming more aligned with your true nature. And this alignment brings a different kind of confidence. Not loud, not dependent on external validation, but quiet and steady. A confidence that comes from knowing you can adapt, you can grow, you can face whatever comes without holding on to what is no longer needed. So do not fear releasing parts of yourself. Do not hold onto identities that limit your expansion. Do not cling to habits that keep you in the past. See them, understand them, and when the time comes, let them go. Because growth is not found in what you keep. It is found in what you are willing to release. Okay, as you continue this journey of awareness, releasing attachment, accepting reality, and letting go of control, space begins to deepen within you. Growth unfolds naturally. And from this process, something arises that cannot be forced, cannot be borrowed, and cannot be taken away. Inner freedom. This is what you have been searching for, not in achievements, not in people, not in perfect circumstances, but within yourself. Yet for most of your life, you have looked in the wrong direction. You believed freedom would come when everything outside aligns with your desires. When life becomes easier, when people understand you, when nothing goes wrong. But that kind of freedom is fragile because it depends on conditions that are always changing. And as long as your peace depends on these conditions, you remain bound. Bound to outcomes, bound to expectations, bound to the constant need for things to be a certain way. Inner freedom is different. It is not about controlling life. It is about no longer being controlled by it. Okay, when you are free, Menitoran, you are no longer shaken by every small disturbance. Situations come and go, but they do not define your state. People may praise you or criticize you, but your sense of self remains stable. Success may come, failure may come, but neither takes away your balance. This is true strength. And it does not come from avoiding life. It comes from fully experiencing it without clinging to it. You allow joy to come without trying to hold it forever. You allow pain to pass without turning it into identity. You move with life, not against it. Freedom begins when you stop identifying with everything that arises within you. Your thoughts are not you. Your emotions are not you. Your past is not you. Even your fears are not you. They are experiences that appear and disappear. And when you see this clearly, you stop holding on to them as if they define your existence. You become the observer, calm, aware, unshaken. From this place, nothing has the same power over you as before. Triggers lose their intensity. Attachments lose their grip. Even desires become lighter. You can still pursue what you want, but your happiness is no longer dependent on achieving it. This is liberation in its purest form. It also brings a deep sense of peace. Not excitement, not temporary happiness, but a quiet, steady peace that remains even in uncertainty. A peace that does not need validation, a peace that does not need constant stimulation. Because you are no longer searching outside for what already exists within. Inner freedom also changes the way you move through the world. You become more present, more grounded, more aware of each moment as it unfolds. You listen more deeply. You act more consciously. You are no longer rushing to become something else because you are fully here. And in this presence, life becomes richer. Not because everything is perfect, but because you are no longer resisting what is imperfect. You see beauty in simplicity. You find calm in stillness. You experience life directly, without the constant interference of the mind. This is living without burden, but understand this clearly. Inner freedom is not something you achieve once and keep forever. It is something you return to again and again through awareness, because the mind will try to pull you back into old patterns. It will try to create new attachments, new fears, new illusions. So you remain watchful, not tense, not rigid, but aware. You notice when you begin to cling. You notice when you begin to resist. And gently, without force, you return to presence. You return to letting go. This is the path. Simple, but not easy. Quiet, but powerful. Invisible to others, yet transformative within. And as you walk this path, you realize something profound. You were never truly trapped by the world. You were only trapped by your attachment to it. The moment you release that attachment, the chains disappear. Nothing external has changed, yet everything feels different. This is inner freedom. It cannot be given to you. It cannot be taken from you. It can only be realized by you. And once you experience it, even for a moment, you will understand. This is what it means to truly live. Let go completely, and freedom becomes your natural state. Now you have seen the path, not as an idea, but as a living truth. It begins with awareness, deepens through understanding attachment, softens into acceptance, releases the illusion of control, creates space within, and transforms you through growth. And in the end, it leads you to something that cannot be shaken, your inner freedom. Cakes. This journey is not about becoming someone new. It is about returning to who you have always been beneath the noise, beneath the fear, beneath the weight you carried for so long. Every step of letting go was not a loss. It was a return to clarity, a return to peace, a return to your true self. Remember this, life will continue to change. Challenges will come. Uncertainty will remain. But now you know the way. You do not need to hold on tightly anymore. You do not need to fight every moment. You can stand steady, aware, and free within yourself. So as you walk forward from here, carry this understanding with you, not as words, but as practice. in every thought, in every action, in every moment of your life. Let go and trust. Let go and grow. For case, let go and free go and become free. Good luck on your journey ahead. May you find strength in stillness, clarity in awareness, and peace in letting go. Thank you.